Good morning, everyone, wherever you are dialing in across Europe and beyond, and welcome to our Cerame-Unie webinar, Ceramics Contributing to an Inclusive Built Environment. My name is Peter Woodward. I'm an independent facilitator, and it's been my privilege to be part of helping to run these important webinars as we look at the whole evolution of the construction industry in all its parts, helping to create environments fit for the future. This program is very much in association with the new European Bauhaus, and at its very heart is that ethic of moving towards sustainability, but ensuring that the spaces and places, homes, offices, and everywhere else that we create are both fit to enjoy and use, but also are social spaces. And we're very much aware at this time that there are huge challenges across society as we grapple with the energy crisis, the cost of living crisis. We live under the shadow of war, but these potentially are an impetus for us to really embed creative thinking about the way we move forward, both in new design of our buildings, our environments, but also in the retrofitting of that. Our focus this morning very much is about that issue of an inclusive built environment, something that works for all, and particularly the contribution that the ceramics section, which has so much to offer in terms of components of the built environment, how that can contribute to that bold goal of a more inclusive built environment. I have a number of expert speakers who are going to offer short impact presentations, and I will introduce them as we go through, looking strategically at the new European Bauhaus and what it is doing, and then more particularly applying some of those principles into practice, particularly with reference to ceramics. After we have heard from our speakers, we will have time for a panel discussion, which I will moderate. And we very much hope as we go through, if you have questions or thoughts you'd like to feed in, please use the Q&A function on the webinar, and we will put those to our panelists as appropriate. But as I say, first of all, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. And we hope you will find something to inspire and challenge you in your work moving forwards. To open us up this morning, the new European Bauhaus is very much a driving force in trying to stimulate new creative thinking around our sustainable future, particularly related to the built environment. And I'm delighted, first of all, we're joined this morning by Magda Hebowska, who's the acting head of unit at the new European Bauhaus at the European Commission. She's acting head of the Joint Research Council of the new European Bauhaus initiative. Sorry, I've just heard I was going to jump to Magda, but I gather our first speaker has now joined us, so I'm absolutely delighted about that. So we're joined this morning by MEP Marcus Rossempere, who's been an absolute driver of the whole Bauhaus, new Bauhaus initiative. Originally trained as an architect, today very much committed to a more sustainable natural and urban environment. And that very much led him to be the founder and coordinator of the new European Bauhaus Friendship Group at the European Parliament. And that's a forum for MEPs to exchange on the new European Bauhaus and its role in European citizenship. So Marcus Rosempre, great to have you with us. This is a truly significant time as we shape the future of Europe, and the Bauhaus is part of that process. So fantastic to have you with us, and look forward to hearing your presentation as you give us really a strategic overview of that drive coming through the NEB. So welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for giving me the floor, and many thanks to Cerame-Unie for organizing this event about the role of ceramics contributing to an inclusive built environment. For me, it is an honor to open this event, and when we receive this invitation to collaborate in this event, the trust is that from our office, we did not hesitate for a second. I am very pleased to join your events for the second time, as I had the opportunity to participate in January in an event on reducing energy and energy use and waste. I will take this opportunity to give you an overview of the new European Bauhaus and the steps it has taken since its creation. Okay, I think, do I need to say you when I want to change the slide? Yes, okay. The first thing to know is that when we talk about the new European Bauhaus, we must understand that it is a paradigm shift related to a change towards a new political time. And to understand this shift, we must understand the moment in which it arises. Next slide, please. A moment in which three major European initiatives are converging. On one side, the European Green Deal with the climate law, the climate pact, and the 2030 emissions reduction target and 2050 neutrality target. On the other hand, the European Urban Agenda, ratified in the new Leipzig Charter in 2020, and on the third hand, the renovation wave that aims to double the energy renovation rates of buildings, reaching more than 35 million, and create more than 160,000 green jobs. It would be a pity, I think it will be a pity, if this huge investment ends up simply changing the air conditioning or putting only solar panels on our roofs. We need a real transformation of our built environment. Next slide, please. At this moment, in September 2020, the President of the European Commission mentioned it in the State of Union speech, the creation of a new European Bauhaus. Next slide, please. In the middle of all this comes the new European Bauhaus initiative, which for the first time puts culture, design, architect, and urban planning at the very center of the European funding policies, and is committed to changing the direction of investment to improve the lives of citizens and leave no one behind. Next slide, please. The initiative was planned in 3 phases. First phase, co-design, delivery, and spread, and these phases will run in parallel, overlapping each other, as you can see in the screen. The first one was the co-design phase that consisted of collecting innovative ideas, challenges to be addressed, and examples of good practice. It was a very successful phase, and I think the European Commission was very surprised about how many institutions, enterprises, and individual citizens participated into this first phase. The second one is the delivery phase, which we are currently in. And this phase serves for the preparation and the implementation of pilot projects through specific calls for proposal. And the last one will be the spreading, and will focus on amplifying all these ideas and measures and bringing them to a wider audience, both in Europe and beyond. And then we will need to develop all over our built environment. Next slide, please. 1 year ago, the European Commission, after more or less when the co-design phase finished, the European Commission launched its official communication on the new European Bauhaus. and it finally detailed the intentions for this initiative and starts the negotiation process with the rest of the European institutions, especially with the European Parliament. The new European Bauhaus remains based on its three core values: sustainability, aesthetics, and inclusion. Beauty, aesthetics, and inclusion. These are the three pillars of the new European Bauhaus. Next slide, please. But to these three pillars were added the three key principles from which this project should be approached: the combination of local and global dimensions, participation, and transdisciplinarity. Next slide, please. Another new development was that the Commission identified 4 thematic axes to be addressed by the new European Bauhaus. The first one was reconnecting with nature, which means talking about climate change, nature-based solutions. The second one was addressed to regaining a sense of belonging, which connects with cities of proximity, also with cultural heritage. The third one is prioritizing the places and people who need it most, and we are talking about affordable and accessible, avoiding segregation, the sense of togetherness. And the fourth one is the need to think long-term in the life cycle of the industrial ecosystem. And we are talking about circularity and reuse, digital transition. Next slide, please. Another important step forward is the intention to create a strategic framework together with the Parliament, the other institutions, and the member states, defined on the basis of synergies between policies and funding instruments already existing in European Union programs. It's a new European Bauhaus. We can say that it is a cross-cutting project, and we have all the funding programs, and everything can be or could be labeled as a new European Bauhaus projects, and you can take money or make calls from any of the programs of the European framework of funding. Next slide, please. The Commission will finance the seed, but then member states, regions, and cities will finance the development. And for this seed, several calls are being proposed, and either fully dedicated or either partially contributing to the new European Bauhaus, following 3 types of impact that projects should see, and with a total value of just over 85 million in the first years, but we are now having more calls, recently calls that are taking more money than this initial 85 million. Next slide, please. Here are some examples of very recent calls for which the deadline for submission of proposal was around May, one for supporting cities and citizen local initiatives, one for the co-creation of public space, and one for the technical assistance to small and medium-sized municipalities to implement projects. Next slide, please. And more recently, just a fortnight ago, the first call for proposal for the European Urban Initiative on Innovative Actions has been launched. Its main objective will be to be the successor of the Urban Innovative Actions initiative of the previous period, and to provide authorities with the necessary resources for new responses to local challenges related to sustainable urban development. Next slide, please. Finally, there are other novelties that will be, for example, the creation of a NEP lab with the aim of giving continuity to the activities already initiated by the high-level table and the official partners, the holding of a new European Bauhaus festival, which took place last June, which joins other actions such as the organization of an annual New European Bauhaus Award, which will give continuity to the first 2 editions of the Bauhaus Awards that were held in 2021 and 2022. Next slide, please. And then, what have we done in the European Parliament? Next slide, please. On 14th of September, past September, very recently, the report in response to the Commission's proposal for a new European Bauhaus was debated and officially approved in the plenary of the European Parliament. I had the opportunity to work as rapporteur on this text, as we were very attentive from the beginning of the project thinking at all times that it was an interesting and really necessary project. From my point of view, it is a project that aims to encourage us to change the way we invest European funds for infrastructures, cities, buildings, and housing, whether for new construction or for refurbishment and energy improvement. This report we have done in the Parliament comes as a response to the European Commission communication of 2021, where it officially set out for the first time its intentions and visions for the new European Bauhaus project. Our report was finally adopted by an absolute majority in the plenary, with more than 75% of the votes in favor, and including all the main groups in the European Parliament. Next slide, please. The NEP projects, the report is asking to support energy and security efficiency by encouraging investment and incentivizing low energy, zero emission and low carbon materials and solutions. The new European Bauhaus projects have a pivotal role in fighting energy poverty through innovative solutions for the building, construction and material sectors, considering its as a precondition for achieving a just and fair energy transitions. To achieve this, the members of Parliament called for this initiative to create incentives to encourage the use of sustainable and durable technologies and materials, promoting smart energy and environmental solutions and innovation in materials. Next slide, please. The importance of building materials in all the aspects I have mentioned should be emphasized. There are a significant element at the moment of executing the policies that are being reformulated in the new European Bauhaus. This is the case of ceramics, which is a material that we can find everywhere in all kinds of architectural scales for decorative purpose or with a specific function. This material is very popular due to its physical and technical characteristics and the benefits it provides over time. The ceramic industry has managed to optimize in a remarkable way the manufacturing process, reducing energy and water consumption to a minimum, and at the same time, minimizing the generation of waste and carbon dioxide emissions. This highlights the building's material industry constant concern for the search for more durable, efficient, and sustainable materials that will enable us to have more efficient, economical, versatile structures that are better integrated into the environment. In short, with the development of new technologies, construction materials are evolving to meet daily and climatic demands, becoming more durable over time and more versatile. Next slide, please. Even in recent months, people keep asking me, and I am finishing my speech, what is the new European Bauhaus? What is the aim of this initiative? My answer is obvious. Like the historical Bauhaus, it is about improving people's lives. It is about putting culture, architecture, design, and urban planning at the service of society. For years, we have been spending millions of euros on renovating buildings to make them less polluting. And it's a good because buildings are responsible for 40% of the European Union's energy consumption. But from a democratic point of view, it is ethical to, I ask you, it is ethical to invest large amounts of public money just to improve the energy efficiency of the buildings and cities without also improving the lives of the citizens who live in them? This is the paradigm that we need. We need a paradigm shift. And with the same investment, or perhaps for a little more, we can use these funds to improve our quality of life by transforming homes, neighborhoods, and cities to suit our needs. And the new European Bauhaus is this paradigm shift, an initiative that invites us to think about how we inhabit our built spaces, and that comes at a key moment for the European Union in the legislature of the Green Pact, the recovery funds, and the wave of building renovation. Most of our houses and neighborhoods where European citizens live were built in the 1950s and 1960s or 70s decades, when lifestyles were very different. Now we have fewer children, families have changed, teleworking has arrived, the pandemic has clearly shown us the importance of the home. The new European Bauhaus comes to adapt our homes, our neighborhoods, and our cities to this change through energy efficiency, beauty, and inclusion. It is time to transform our cities and our heritage. Next slide, please. Energy efficiency, yes, but also beauty and social engagement. To make this initiative a reality, we need the impetus of the European Commission. We need to move from the project to a program with a stable budget. And with the new European Bauhaus, it's the first time that architecture, urbanism, design, and culture are put together at the center of the European Union's policies. The original Bauhaus movement came to democratize our homes, and now 100 years have passed and the ways of living have changed more than the space. But the time to change has come. We have rekindled the spirit of the original Bauhaus into the new European Bauhaus. Next slide, please. And I hope this explanation has helped all of you to learn more about this initiative. I am at your disposal for any question. I hope you have a fruitful debate, and I'm very sorry because I cannot leave to all the debate because I have other meetings to attend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And it's great at a strategic level for us to feel inspired by a compelling vision of the future, and that is being debated and discussed and turned into deliverable programs. So thank you very much indeed for that presentation and for the energy you bring to this whole possibility in times of some challenge and gloom, that we may see the prospect of responding to that in a creative way. And we hope that this sector might be one of the leaders in that transition of thought and practice. So thank you very much for the work you're doing and your contribution. And I'm delighted now that we're joined by Magda Habowska to offer us a little bit more detail about some of the initiatives and approach that the new European Bauhaus initiative is taking. You're acting head of the unit at the Joint Research Council, and interesting to hear. Probably we've heard some of the strategic overview, to hear further about the drive from the European Commission and some of the developments very much in the context of the NEB initiative. And just a reminder as we go through, if you've got a comment or a question, please just jot it down in the Q&A and we'll either answer it within that or I'll draw it into the panel. But Magda, great to have you with us. I'm sure this is an extraordinarily busy time for you, and looking forward to hearing you filling in some of the colour and detail of the new European Bauhaus as it moves forward. So over to you.
I'm just trying to unmute myself. Okay, nice, very nice to be here, and thank you, Peter, for the great introduction, and also to Marcos for the great overview. When I saw, it's not the first time that I'm in the same event with Marcos, who is a very active member of Parliament working on the European Bauhaus. So I knew that if he was doing the key speech, I wouldn't, he would cover everything in a beautiful way. So then I thought, maybe I would give you some examples of concrete things that we are doing right now, which could be useful for you, since the focus of the discussions today, in my understanding, is inclusivity in the built environment. But I do want to, a little bit linked to what Marcos was saying, and also you, Peter, in the beginning, to show you how we work. Even in the detailed projects, we're always guided by those principles that you both mentioned. And of course, just as the original Bauhaus in the beginning of the 20th century was an expression of a new way of thinking, of a new way of being. So we aim for the same thing now with the new European Bauhaus, to have a fresh, innovative approach about the world, and actually our role in it, how we live in the world. And of course, if we are to have a future on our planet, it has to be sustainable, but we cannot forget about the human need for beauty and for inclusion. So this is our goal, to make the places we live in and our lifestyles more sustainable, beautiful, and inclusive. And as you said, Peter, I agree, this is even more important in those difficult times we live in, because it would be very easy to give into gloom. And so these sort of initiatives that actually bring hope, and especially also for the young generations, are extremely important. And that's why it's so great to be working on such an inspiring project. The whole project was started in an inclusive way, because as was mentioned before, we had a whole co-design phase when we engage with people through their experiences, not theoretically, but really we asked them what their experiences were, and that's how the whole concept was created. And it was a very broad consultation. And since September 2021, we are now in the delivery phase. So as you, Peter, said, we are doing a lot of things right now, but I chose 3, maybe 4 that could be of particular importance for this discussion. So first thing I would like to mention is the compass, and I do not have a presentation. That is on purpose, first of all, so that you guys listen to me and you're not reading on screen, but also because a lot of the things that I'm talking about are in the finalization stage, so we will be sharing them shortly. So I just want to give you a little bit of a teaser, of a taster of what's coming. As you might know, if you read the communication, that in the communication already we announced that we will develop tools to identify how the values and the principles of the new European Bauhaus can translate into concrete projects. So we have in the NAB Lab what we call the labeling strategy, which shall deliver on this promise by providing a series of instruments for recognizing, characterizing, and assessing quality in relation to the new European Bauhaus. And we have 2 different levels in there. So the first is the compass, and then we will have also self-assessment tools which are much more precise. So the compass, which, as I said, will be out by the end of this month, and we will share it with the community, share it with you, and test it with you. It sets out the key characteristics for an exemplary NAB project. It can be applied to a wide range of typologies. Of course, the first one that everyone thinks of, and it's true, it's the most maybe urgent and also concrete, the building sector. But in the future, we also want to apply it to products, services, education models, etc. And so the compass exemplifies what is beautiful, sustainable together, what it really means, and it has 3 levels of ambition. And also it shows the 3 levels, the 3 principles that define the NAB, the way of working, the NAB way of working, let's say. So the participatory process, the multi-level engagement, and the transdisciplinary approach. So if you are assessing a project, a building with the compass, you will assess the beautiful, sustainable together, and you could have 3 different levels for each of those. So for example, you could have level 1 for sustainability, but level 2 for beauty, level 3 for inclusiveness, and you will still be NAB, so to speak. The together mode, which maybe I would explain a little bit, the together part of the compass, the inclusion part, has 3 ambitions as all the others. And just as an example, how the compass works. So the ambition 1 here in the together part is to include. So here we're looking at equality, accessibility, prioritizing disadvantaged people. Ambition 2 would be to consolidate, so overcoming segregation, representation, and social stability, sharing resources and sharing opportunities. And level 3, to transform. We would look whether the project fosters shared social values, a societal development and a collective growth, and new ways of living together. So you see on this example a little bit how the compass works, and we have the same level of 3 ambitions for the beauty, for inclusiveness, and then for the 3 ways of working together. So this will be out by the end of the month, and at the same time we're already working on the methodology for the labeling, and we have a whole team also in the Joint Research Center, which is not the NEP team, but it is a collaborating team of specialists who are working on this with us. And this would be a methodology for project self-assessment and a practical toolkit to guide the preparation and implementation of individual local transformation projects. And right now we are looking at there are a lot of systems to evaluate sustainability out there. We are looking at all of those, but there's a bit less on beauty, and also inclusion is also a whole different ballgame. So we are working on those 3 values and trying to come up with a tool which would best fit the NEB. We have a working group on this in our NEB lab, so if anyone is interested to participate and to contribute, you are very much welcome. And so this is the compass and the labeling. Something which is also, I think, could be of interest to you is the regulatory analysis, which we're also finalizing. So what we have done is we have asked broadly associations, organizations, businesses, citizens, whether when they try to implement a NEB project, they encounter difficulties on the legislative scale, or maybe actually there's legislation that helps with that. So we really want to have an understanding also on the legislative part, how this interplays with the NEB way of doing things. So we have done a broad survey, and we also have received many reports from different organizations, which we are now finalizing the analysis of. From this survey, some tasters I could give you. People identified through the survey clusters of topics which are the most sort of relevant, and which are either blockages to implementing NEP projects, or sometimes actually can help implement NEP projects. So we saw that what came through was the importance of circularity and sustainability of construction materials, of course energy efficiency, but also spatial, regional, local planning, different approaches to cities in different countries, quest for beauty and quality in architecture, public procurement, and accessibility of buildings, which is quite important. From the reports that we received and that we are still digesting, some things I could mention that are quite interesting that came through. For example, the need to provide training for youth and women in traditional techniques and skills, which I think could be interesting for this audience. Also, we saw heavy gender inequality in large construction companies. We have, I know there's a colleague from Housing Europe here today. We had received also a few very important reports from Housing Europe, for example, one on affordable housing. So we are now analyzing all this, and again, this will be shared with the community shortly. I wanted to mention also the European Urban Initiative call, but Marcos did already. But I wanted to repeat this because there's a lot of money in there, 50 million, and each project can receive up to 5 million euros. And actually the themes in there are quite interesting. One is constructing or renovating in a spirit of circularity. One is preserving and transforming cultural heritage. Then we have adapting and transforming buildings for affordable housing solutions, and regenerating urban spaces. So this is a call for cities, and but we are hoping really to get great demonstrators from this call. And maybe very quickly, because I am self-timing and I see that I'm over 10 minutes, just to tell you that in December we will launch the new call for prizes 2023. Marcos mentioned the festival, the prizes, and this could be also of interest. We have novelties this year. We will have a special strand on projects for education and learning, and as you know, 2023 is also the year of skills, European Year of Skills. And we're also expanding geographically, so we will have full participation from the Western Balkans this year. So we're very proud of that. So I will stop maybe here, but of course, if there are any questions or anyone needs more information, I am happy to share and also even send you materials later. Thanks.
Magda, thank you very much indeed for that further overview of the range of initiatives and the drive that's taking place. And as you mentioned, if anyone's got a question of clarification or a comment, please just put it into the Q&A box, and we'll see whether we can respond to it this morning or beyond today. So please don't be backwards in coming forwards, but great to get that further sense of purpose and an opportunity. There's obviously a divide, and Magda will have you back on the panel at the end to open up a little bit of further discussion. There's obviously always a great divide between strategic visions and initiatives and programs and the reality on the ground. And now we're really going to just, with our further speakers, going to look at some of that emerging reality. As I mentioned at the start, these is enormous challenging times for so many of our citizenry, particularly in housing. And our next speaker, delighted we're joined by Elena Milanovska, who's from Habitat for Humanity. And that's a non-profit housing organization working to empower people in the world's poorest communities, seeking to overcome the chronic lack of decent housing. And it's true that although it's wonderful with a clear sheet of paper to design for the future, so much across Europe, so much of our housing and development has already taken place. And we all know the challenge of retrofitting is enormous. But Elena, great that you're with us. And I think you're going to, as your title says, putting people first, how to support owner-occupiers in multi-apartment buildings to engage in renovation. So really interesting to hear some of your insights and the approach you're taking very practically to enable people to live better lives within multi-apartment buildings. So Elena, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. And good morning or afternoon to my fellow participants on the panel, but also to the audience. Warm greetings from Skopje, Macedonia. I'm just joining from my home country. I'm on a short vacation, but very glad to be with you on this session. First and foremost, I would like to thank also to the organizers for inviting us to present our projects, the intention of our projects, and also the impact. But also I'm grateful for their coordination and facilitation of this panel session. I'm representing, as you said, Peter, Habitat for Humanity International, the Office of Europe and Middle East. We are one of the biggest global international development organizations that are focused primarily and solely on the housing. In my presentation, I will be focusing on the CE region or Central Eastern Europe and the work we are implementing in different countries with different partners and stakeholders. Next slide, please. So this is the very brief snapshot of what is our strategic priorities in this region. And I will be focusing in this presentation on the first one, which is the residential energy efficiency, energy poverty, with the focus on multi-apartment buildings and homeowner association. But also we work very much into alternative model for social housing and affordable housing, housing of the vulnerable groups, especially the Roma in the context of the CE, housing finance services, and also capital mobilization, and the housing of the Ukrainian refugees, which is something that we just add in the light of the latest happening in Ukraine. Next slide, please. Allow me first to give you a bit of the context of the residential building stock in the CE, which will set a scene for the presentation of the projects we are implementing. So nearly half of the existing housing stock in Central and Eastern European countries was constructed between the 60s and 90s. During this time, the new housing construction was primarily prefabricated, large-scale multifamily housing blocks that were built with a little or no consideration of the energy efficiency at the time. The mass privatization in the 90s resulted in owner occupation rate, which is approximately 80 to 90%. In the most of the cases, the transfer from the public to private ownership took place within 2 or 3 years by transferring the rights of the ownership to the sitting tenants at the time. The speed which mass privatization need to be done left many of the country without an adequate regulatory framework for managing and maintaining those buildings. The new home owners had a few resources to manage and maintain their own apartments, let alone the community building facilities in the multifamily housing units. So approximately 1/3 of the total energy in ECE region, which includes European Union, the Southeastern Europe, and also the Commonwealth of Independent State countries, is consumed in building, for the most part in the residential sector, which is responsible for up to 40% of the total energy use, depending on the, of course, particular country, or about 20 to 30% in average for the region. Because of the scope of energy consumption in the housing sector and the fact that dwellings belong to the longest lived parts of the human technological infrastructure, housing offers a major sphere for action. Next slide, please. So I will be speaking primarily for 2 projects that we are running currently, but they're part of our energy portfolio as wide and the strategy that we are developing for tackling all of this. One of the flagship programs we have is called RELI, or Residential Energy Efficiency for Low-Income Households. And it started a decade ago in the 3 countries, Armenia, North Macedonia, and Bosnia and Herzegovina, which at the time we thought they had the biggest need and demand for this type of intervention. Next slide, please. And the second one, which was a natural transition from the RELI, is the COMACT project, which aims to turn high impact and high cost energy efficiency measure into affordable, low cost solution for energy poor household with a set of financial, technical, and organizational actions in the following country, like Hungary, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Ukraine, and North Macedonia. So we are expanding also in the not only the scope of activities as they were evolving from RELI, but also in the geographical scope. Next slide, please. This is our approach, HFHI approach. Considering the complexity of the issue, especially when you are working with the multi-apartment buildings and the homeowner association and many of the homeowners in one building, our approach of the implementation of solutions is very comprehensive and systemic. We are engaging with all the key stakeholders, and we are trying to facilitate the dialogue between all of them, because all of these issues cannot be solved just by renovation or bringing the homeowners association together. So there is a lot more complexity that is happening, and you have to tackle it from all the different perspectives. So we are acting on the three main dimensions. The first one is on the community level, empowering and activating the communities of homeowner association, then also engaging with the private sector, financial institutions, the investors, the construction companies, by developing and adapting financial tools that would provide financing for low-income family in the multi-apartment buildings. And lastly, optimizing technical solutions that will provide the most favorable cost-benefit ratio for the energy efficient improvement in the multi-apartment buildings. Next slide, please. This is just a brief reminder of the three values: sustainability, aesthetics, and inclusion, which are the values of the new European Bauhaus. Next slide, please. I'm not going to keep myself too long on this. This is the impact we are expecting and how this is tied to the basic value of the new Bauhaus, European Bauhaus. So one is the energy saving. This is what we are expecting as impact from our projects. Reduction of the greenhouse emissions, increased investment in sustainable energy, inclusion of the homeowners, wider application of this potential, and this is what we are doing through the set of different type of projects and contribution to EU and national target related to energy poverty. Next slide, please. So the examples of the project and activities we implement related to the social inclusion, one of those is the community training and facilitation of the decision making. As you know, it's a very hard, and the biggest challenge is bringing the homeowners together to make a certain decision. So through this training, we are really facilitating the decision making. And this is a couple of pictures of those events that are happening on the local level. Next slide, please. Also, we established resource center and community, which they are implementing a different type of a community in the pilot countries. The resource centers are places where the citizen can gather every type of information related to the renovation of their buildings, from what are the best intervention, where they can find the financing, how they can gather together. So this is really the place that they will find the facilitation and help and support and advices needed to move forward with their intention for the renovation. Next slide, please. The sustainability is primarily in this stage through demonstration projects. So we are renovating multi-apartment buildings. We have done over 100 buildings so far in the countries. We have the pilots, and also testing different type of financial models, which might be consisted of the loan, subsidy, and guarantee funds. And we are working closely with the local authorities to develop a long-term action plans. In parallel, we work with the investors to mobilize capital for financing the renovation and sustaining these projects. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit more on the aesthetics. So you can see one of the buildings, example of one of the buildings we were renovating. The savings were up to 44%. This is the full envelope renovation. Next slide, please. So this is the case of Macedonia. This is one of the biggest buildings. So it's 14 stories, 112 apartments. There was a full envelope roof renovation, and it was up to 40%. But what is very important is that after that, the homeowners got together and they started developing the area surrounding the building. So it's not only the common areas within the building, but surrounding the building, because they feel that they want to beautify the areas they live in. Next slide, please. So there is also a couple of policy recommendations, because it's very important, and when you are approaching something so comprehensively, that also the regulation and the policy are playing the significant role. So on the national and local level, we are really trying to raise the awareness for targeting the homeowners association and promote energy efficiency measures for the multi-apartment buildings. providing technical assistance to homeowner association for the social, which is including the social facilitation and the one-stop shops or the resource centers I was speaking before, where they serve as an expert and are paid by the local governments to ensure the scaling up of the renovation of the buildings in a very sustainable way. Next slide, please. So Habitat plays a huge role also in transferring the knowledge. So you can see a lot of links to the resources that we have. The organizers will share all of these links. Feel free to go and check on our website, but also on our resources. And please reach out to me if you need to learn anything more. Next slide, I think it's the last slide with with my email address, but also the website of the two flagship projects that I was presenting, Rely and Comact. Thank you very much, and I'm here if there is any question from the audience.
Elena, thank you very much. Fascinating projects, and the crucial thing is this is real experience. This is working right at the front line with people trying to make the changes. So it's great that not only are you doing this, but you have a huge emphasis on sharing some of your knowledge and insights, because boy, do we need insights that help others take the steps that you are doing. So thank you so much for that. And again, yeah, if you've got a Q&A, you've got a question, just drop it into the Q&A box, and we'll draw that into the conversation as we go forward. But for now, Elena, thank you very much indeed, especially as you're on holiday this week. I'd now like to turn to Michiel Spaan, who's from M3H Architecten in the Netherlands. And Michiel, great to have you with us. You've been very much looking at the issue of inclusive built environments, but particularly looking at the contribution of ceramics within that process of achieving inclusive built environments. So without further ado, interesting to hear one or two of your insights and practical projects related to ceramics, particularly within this theme. So Michiel, great to have you with us, and over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, nice being here and hearing all these interesting stories. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I have an office in Amsterdam, M3A Architects, for 25 years now, and we are making a lot of brick buildings in ceramics. So, and what's I think important for us, what we learned in the time, that the brick is a really interesting material, especially in Amsterdam, where most of the city is made of brick, and the brick defines the atmosphere of the city. And not only that, but as you see in this image, it's an entrance of an apartment building, a social housing apartment building we made in Amsterdam, that we really play with the bricks and show them also in their dimensions. And what's nice is that the brick is, in a way, it has the scale of the hand of the maker and the scale of the human being, so you can really see how something is made. So, and that makes also a sort of an inclusive building, that people start to understand how buildings are put together. And at the other hand, it's also beautiful and nice to see, and is very sustainable in time. So it won't get stuck or something. Next, please. One other thing I want to mention is that I'm for already 20 years teaching a lot at the Amsterdam Academy of Architecture, and we do a lot of interdisciplinary, but also European projects with Erasmus, where we learn with students how to work with materials. This is in a clay depot of a brick factory where we stack bricks. So also this is for me a way of getting know the material, but also work with it in a playful way. Next, please. And this is one of the result ones, so it leads to inspiring stackings and ways of using the material. So I think it's very important also to learn the next generation to use the material in a interesting way. So next image, please. So I want to show shortly two projects we built in the last 5-6 years. One of them is the Tuchela-blokken. It's 2 housing blocks in the 19th century ring of Amsterdam. In this image, you see at the top you see the eye river and the central station of Amsterdam, and at the bottom you see 5 building blocks. And the middle 2 ones, we build a new block there instead of the old one. It is an area. The original blocks were from the architect Lelyman, and this is a urban design of Berlage. So it was the first time they made instead of separate houses, they started to build collective housing projects. As very well known in the Netherlands is the Amsterdam School, where they started to build nice and beautiful houses for the poor people instead of leaving them somewhere out of the city. So we had the chance to make a new design for the 2 middle of these blocks. I'm not going too far into the design. I just want to mention one special issue in this project. Next slide, please. So these were the original blocks in the 30s. What is important that this was once built by a Jewish housing corporation, and they had a really a nice logo for their corporation. Next slide, please. There's this one. We took some of them out of the original building and replaced them in the new building. That's one thing. But the other thing we did is that we invited industrial designers from Atelier NL to incorporate an art project in the project. As also was done a lot in the Amsterdam School period in the Netherlands, so they involved artists and designers in design processes for housing. So we invited them, and they were really inspired by this logo and with the colors of the logo. So we reused the colors in the building project. Next slide, please. So what we did, this is an abstraction of the logo that we, in a way, printed or screened on the whole facade, and then here you also see the different colors of this logo. And what we did, we glazed bricks in these colors. And we had parts on the building where people come really close to the building, like entrances, balconies or windows. There we show the color. So next image, please. So this is one of the entrances of the building. Here you see that at the main entrance there are some of those colors, and there are some lines all over the building that in a way they still show the logo, but very abstract, and it becomes a sort of ornaments on the building itself. Next, please. This is the other side, where you see also at the corners of the building you see these colors, and it's there, but it's at the same time it's very modest, and the building just fits into the context of the city. Next, please. Now here you see, right, but when you come closer, you see it everywhere. You see these colors come back, and they really they give each house also its own identity, because each house and each entrance has its own line or surface of color. So it makes it also, it really becomes very personal. Next, please. And you see also that in the end, in the way the people use it and also use the street, that also the colors of the plants and the flowers, they really blend into the colors of the brick. So it really becomes a sort of a total piece of art, but at the same time a really nice living environment. Next, please. And then finally, what is interesting that we did is that we made also really small bricks in the same colors, and we made a sort of a game out of it for all the people that live in the building. And with this game, we also explains to them the history of the building and where these colors come from. So then it becomes a sort of a narrative for them, and that they can also tell and they can be proud on it about it. So the building and also the piece of art really becomes something of themselves. So next, please.
Michael, just a couple of minutes for the other.
Yeah, I know. It's this one goes faster. Okay. So this is another project. I go quickly through. It's in the city of Haarlem. It's close to Amsterdam. It's a project on a site where in the history where a lot of greenhouses and flower fields. And we had to rebuild there a small project of 12 social houses. Next, please. So here you see part of the old facade and part of the new facade, and you see what we did. That the old wooden joints and lintels, we replaced them by a sort of a pixel white brick. To give a sort of a new identity that at the same time blends in the old street and morphology of this part of the city. Next, please. And we designed a special a brick together with Chris Kabel. He's also a designer with a nose and a hole in it. Next, please. So that's the brick we used for the facade. So here you see this pixeled facade again. Next, please. And so what was the idea that in this pixeled facade? So in these holes you can put ropes, and then you can grow plants on the facade. And this is this was an invitation to the people that lived there, and they really took this invitation, and they all together they worked on a sort of a green plan for the small street, and they put plants there, and they grow on the facade. So next, please. And this is after a few months, the first summer or last year, that you see that this facade started to become green and becoming really part of the people that live there, and they also really get engaged with the street and the project, and actually the bricks really helps to do this. The brick is a sort of an invitation for them to involve in the city. So that's it. I think this was my last image. Thank you, and looking forward to the next presentation.
Thank you so much, and it's great to see that we can embrace beauty within the practicality of building and refurbishment as well, and again that increasing emphasis on the participation of people within that process. So thank you for those inspiring slides and those projects. We have one final speaker before we just open up a little bit of conversation at the end. And I'm delighted we're joined this morning by Clara Maffei, who's Innovation and Project Officer at Housing Europe. Housing Europe brings together public, social and cooperative housing providers to enable access to decent and affordable housing. And I think it's great to have you with us, Clara, and I think you're going to offer us some examples of one or two projects that align very much with the objectives of the new European Bauhaus. So great to hear a little bit more about your work and to see some of those slides of reality in action. So over to you, Clara.
Thank you very much, Peter. Very happy to be here. Good morning to fellow speakers and participants. And yeah, in general, thank you for considering the social and affordable housing sector for this conversation. Just a quick word about who we are actually. If we go to the next slide, please. So we are Housing Europe. I'm representing Housing Europe. We are the European Federation for Public, Social and Cooperative Housing. We were established in the 1980s and we represent 46 national and regional federations, gathering about 43,000 public, social and cooperative housing providers across 25 countries in Europe. But we all have a common goal, which is to provide decent and affordable housing for all. And essentially the core of our work is to influence better policies, better investment in social and affordable housing, and also in relation to the European Bauhaus now to establish creative alliances with the welfare sector and to sort of improve the image of the sector that is often associated with negative stigma in many countries in Europe still. So to continue with the next slide. Yeah, so as I was saying, in relation to the Bauhaus, one of the missions of our sector is to ensure quality of housing and quality of place as a fundamental prerequisite for better quality of living. So social and affordable housing is often a stepping stone to better life opportunities for many, and should therefore not only ensure livable and also climate-proof building conditions, but also a quality and sense of place. And this is because it is often in these neighborhoods where people create their identity and define their future ambitions in life. And this can easily be done through the creation of vibrant public spaces, renaturing of grey areas, combined with conscious design and a network of neighborhood services. So in this line, we do not just provide affordable homes, but a number of other services, especially at neighborhood level, that include domiciliary care and support services for residents with specific needs, services for tenants such as kindergartens, community centers, employment and training services. We also provide management of shelter accommodation, urban development and regeneration, more importantly, and building and neighborhood energy renovation, very timely at the moment. So social and affordable housing districts are in a crucial position actually for authorities and the welfare system to collaborate and work together. And this is where we see the new European Bauhaus plays a key role for us in setting up these creative alliances via multi-sectoral partnerships. So actually our sector has a key challenge, which is a key challenge in the fair energy transition is this trilemma. So balancing affordability, sustainability, and availability of homes. So by affordability, we mean producing homes that are fit with the financial means of the people in need. Sustainability means the capacity to build homes within the limits of the natural resources we have at our disposal. And availability is the capacity to meet the demand and the growing demand for affordable housing. So these three principles are what our sector social housing providers are supposed to do at the same time, which often when making decisions, and this also relates to decisions for the selection of materials of construction and renovation, implies a trade-off. And in the private housing market, it is almost practically impossible, I would say, to reach these three at the same time. So we have in our sector to often sacrifice one at the expense of others. So this is just, we all know these figures, but just a quick reminder of what the situation is in the built environment. So according to the official EU statistics, the building sector is a well-known greenhouse gas emitter. So at the moment, the end use of energy in buildings is 39%. And this is mainly due to energy used by heating, lighting, and other appliances. But a lesser known factor is actually the emissions associated with building materials. So whether it is cement, wood, glass, bricks, sand, ceramics, every material comes with its own climate cost and its own carbon footprint. So to reduce these emissions is really crucial to reach the climate neutrality we are all working for. So there is a need to change the way we produce materials. This not only involves using less raw materials or substituting them with recycled materials, but also switching the conventional fuels we use to produce these materials. So decarbonizing the manufacturing process is key. So what can we do from our sector, from social and affordable housing, to favor more sustainable processes, more sustainable materials? So on the one hand, at least from Housing Europe, that we have a wide knowledge of the geographical diversity in Europe. We need to acknowledge that our members and different countries, different regions have different needs, and they have different options available. So we need to ensure that the processes that allow low CO2 emissions for the current use products are in place. We need to keep a variety of construction materials, also in line with a vernacular approach to construction that I think also the European Bauhaus is trying to promote. So be aware of what's the competitive advantage in each region, or what are the industries that are stronger, what are the materials that are available that we can use. And then on the other hand, procurement. Many of social public housing providers are subscribed to public procurement rules, and this is a very important tool to drive the market. So social housing has a social function. Therefore, when we select materials, we don't just focus on the cheapest materials, but other features are favored. And this relates to the trilemma that I was speaking about. So cost, energy efficiency, environmental performance, promote local economy, local jobs. So I will give you a taste of a few examples that we have in social housing using ceramics. I think I have 3 or 4, so I'll be quick. The first one is one in the Balearic Islands in Spain, in Formentera. And this one is called Live Reusing Posidonia. It's a climate change adaptation project developed by IBABI, which is the Balearic Institute of Public Housing. And it's really about developing low-cost housing, which has a significantly reduced carbon footprint. And this project uses a hyper-local architecture model, which links environmental issues with the regional culture and traditional local architectural techniques. So the design team of this project looked at their surrounding area and tried to find what is the best mix of traditional materials that are available in the region, and use them in completely new and creative ways. In this project in particular, ceramic clay bridge blocks were used. They were locally made with no additives, and they were baked in an oven using biomass. And this biomass was made with almond shells, pine needles, or pine splinters. And it's had quite a traditional Moorish method of baking. This one is actually an example from Brussels. The Housing Europe team went on a site visit last week actually to see this social housing building renovated. So it's the project the Nouvelle Cité Forêt in the district of Forêt, and is developed by the Société Logement de la Région de Bruxelles Capitale. And this is a renovation project of 8 buildings, and is known for the famous yellow bricks. So these bricks, I think they amount to 650,000. They were laid by hand on the facades according to a specific pattern, alternating white and ochre. And yeah, this was to preserve the harmony and the spirit of the district that dates back from the 1950s. It's a new design, but it really reminds to the 1950s style. And another one, is also located in Brussels. It's a refurbishment of 5 corridors in a social housing project. And yeah, they decided to use a range of ceramics to add color and to juxtapose private and public uses to connect the inside and the outside. And I think the last one, this is just another example from Portugal using ceramics on the facade by Jebalish. You know, the ceramic industry is quite powerful in Portugal. And I don't know if I have time to a 60-second video just to, this is part of the BBC, a BBC campaign that we did for social housing. It's a compilation of 20 different stories of successful examples across Europe.
Let's go for it.
Thank you, Peter. I don't think we can hear it, so
okay,
it's okay.
We'll just try again, see whether we can get the sound.
We're seeing a time with an extraordinary need for good quality, affordable, energy efficient housing. There's never been such a spotlight on the sector. But at the same time, we see examples of housing initiatives across Europe that really go towards a vision of a housing system that leaves nobody behind.
I really feel privileged to live here in such affordable, children-friendly place.
An individual cannot always solve their housing situation on their own.
Vi vidste egentlig godt, at vi gerne ville have et barn, men det gik ret meget hurtigere, end vi lige havde forventet.
Our home, our jobs, our families, all of that change after the war.
Delivering affordable, decent housing to all has to be a collective issue. In Europe, cost of rents and the cost of buying has actually risen much more quickly than incomes. And what social affordable housing providers do is they work to address that. What do European renters need? They need good quality homes, they need security of tenure, and they need those homes to be genuinely affordable. But we are seeing the development of neglected areas into new communities with a mix of people of diverse incomes and backgrounds.
I den boligblok, hvor jeg bor, der er vi så mange forskellige mennesker. Det er fantastisk.
We will construct 265 houses for social tenants, 108 dwellings for private owners.
What we want to do is to support the building of new homes that improve their localities. We also want to support activities that repair the existing stock to make sure people are safer and warmer at home and, of course, have lower energy bills.
There are about 12,000 of these buildings that are in need of renovation.
There are very few needs as basic as housing and with as much potential to transform cities and people's lives. What we would like to see is that new housing is delivered according to what actually people need and what places need, and that those places become thriving economic centers with strong communities.
There in the community, you are interacting with people. Then there's always
I think that's fine. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Clara, thank you so much. Again, it's great to see real examples of transformation that is taking place and reinforcing many of the insights that we've heard throughout these presentations. If I could invite all our speakers to return for a little final mini panel. We've only got 10 minutes or so, but if you can click your video on so we can see your smiling faces, that would be great. And out there within the webinar, we've got just under 100 people involved with us. If you've got a question or a comment you want to share, then very quickly do it on the Q&A button down the bottom. I think what I'd like to do, I mean, thank you so much. We've been inspired by some of the practical examples, and also beginning to see how the ceramics sector can really be a contributor to this transformation. I just had a question for Magda Habowska from the new European Bauhaus initiative. I suppose one of the challenges sometimes is that these noble causes and ideas and initiatives, often they get sort of caught, the big boys in the world doing sort of great boutique solutions, all the rest of it, so often are the ones that get wrapped up in this. We have a whole set of people with very basic needs in hugely challenging circumstances, and those challenging circumstances are only going to get worse in the next few years, particularly with the energy crisis. I'm just interested in your sense about how the new European Bauhaus can really reach and inspire to the most basic level of needs. I just wonder whether you want to just offer a thought how we're avoiding it just becoming a thing of beauty or at a higher level. Do you want to just respond to that?
Yes, so of course that would be a pity, and this is not what we want. What we want to see is real transformation on the ground. That's the main idea, and we are seeing that. So through so many examples, our prize winners are people who are actually transforming their lives and the lives of their communities on the ground. We have many initiatives going which are doing just that. One I would mention in the field of education, we bring together people who are transforming their places of education, which can be a school, which can be a university, which can be a library, through very concrete projects. So we see also developments in different member states, even in the area of legislation, and so really things are happening on the ground, and change is happening. We will actually come out with a report by the end of this year, where we will showcase a little bit, what has been the impact of the initiative, with very concrete examples across the board. So I could give you so many examples that I cannot think now to, I cannot list them all, but
no, that's fine.
But absolutely, we aim for real impact, and we're starting to see it.
Great. And I'm just, in the time that's available, I'm just going to come to each of our panelists, and really, if you had just a final or a reinforcing short message to those of us participating in this webinar. So we've got people very much linked with the ceramics, whole ceramics sector. And we've also got people who are very much interested in that inclusive built environment. If you had a final short message that you would really like to, as I say, offer or reinforce, literally a couple of sentences that would be that further driving forward of transformation, because it does feel to me that we now have the concept and the thinking and the possibility, but delivering change is a real change. So I wonder whether Magda, as I had you on before, whether you would like to just offer that, just a reinforcing words to our sector about that journey forwards.
I would just say keep on doing the great work and also coming together. I think what has transpired through this seminar is how important inclusion is, but in a way that we really work together from different perspectives, and we have that in our community to create real change and to create together the future that we want.
Okay, I like that very much indeed. Thank you for that. And maybe same opportunity question to Elena Milanovska from Habitat for Humanity. If you had a resounding message to ring in our ears.
Yeah, the most important aspect, at least from our perspective and experience working over a decade in this field, is really the dialogue between the different stakeholders from a public, private, also people. So I would emphasize the need of innovative ways of renovation and how do we raise the awareness of those. I'm inviting all of the key players in the ceramic field to come up front and share their experience and share their innovation and how this can bring a different way of approaching either energy efficiency or the way we are renovating the buildings.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And Machiel.
Yes, maybe adding to that, I think it's important that we also really start with the material itself from bottom up and just in the field on site work with people, with craftsmanship, with techniques to make a better world, because that's where we have to do it. So you have to start on site.
Yeah, no, I like that very much. And finally, Clara Maffei from Housing Europe.
Yes, hard to add anything else. But as I said earlier, what's really at the core of our mission or our role in the Bauhaus is to search for these out-of-the-box collaborations with other industries, other sectors. This is what is happening in our social housing neighborhoods. We are collaborating with the social care, we are collaborating with designers, with architects, with funding agencies. So it's really that cross-sectoral collaboration. And I think the Bauhaus got it right in the sense that beauty, aesthetics, and design is really a good pool for people. People from all backgrounds, what they really want to have is a nicer place to live, a nicer environment. So it's really a driver for all the work that we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, thank you for those messages, and thank you all for your inspiring contributions this morning. It's great to see that things are happening, and although there's a huge challenge ahead, we have to light candles rather than curse the darkness, and let's hope that this whole movement really builds a new momentum and that there is real hope. Magda, did you want to just come in at the end?
Yes, just to say, because there was a question in the chat earlier, I think, which was directed to me. So I did answer in the chat, but I'm not sure whether the person can see it. So if he gets in touch, I can reply to him later.
Okay, yeah, we saw you the question and we had an answer. So just carry on in the chat if you're not satisfied or didn't get that answer. Just to say also, as well as that thing about really that focus on the social aspect of sustainability, the opportunity that ceramics bring. The message really I also hear coming through this morning is about collaboration. Interestingly, one other little comment, we haven't got a chance to really open it up, from Giuseppe Moimetti from the European Group of Ceramic Cities, the artistic angle to this, really asking about that opportunity for the artistic ceramic world to be part of things. And I suspect that's really a prompt for a message which this is about collaboration. This is about a movement for transition and for change. So if this webinar has done nothing more than encouraged you that there are many people involved in this journey, Cerame-Unie itself is on that journey to carbon neutrality and very much involved in the new European Bauhaus. So maybe see this webinar as the stimulus to reach out, make the connection, perhaps with some of the speakers and organizations from this morning. But I'm sure the message is that it is only through that collaboration, that connecting, that taking of risks together that we will really make the true breakthroughs, particularly enabling and giving the possibility for citizens, many of whom are so challenged at the moment in their lives, to live in places that they can feel comfortable, affordable, and enjoyable to live in. So if I could thank all our speakers for their active contributions and participation, if I can thank everybody who joined the webinar. We hope you've been informed and inspired, and no doubt we will meet you sometime soon in the future as we carry on this journey. But for now, thank you all very much for your involvement, and we will now close this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.